This is Associate Trainer Erin O'Reilly riding the World Dressage Federation Level 1 Test 1. A. Entereth the working walk. Proceed down center line to X without halting. X to H. Continue working walk along diagonal. H to C. Continue working walk to C. After C, turn right on quarter line. Between B and F, leg yield left to the rail between B and F. Between B and F, circle right 20 meters. Continue working walk to K. KXM, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. Between M and C, working walk. Past C and turn left on the quarter line. Between A and K, leg yield right to rail between E and K. Between E and K, circle left 20 meters. Continue working walk to A through C, 3-loop serpentine. HXF, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. Between F and K, working walk. K to X, proceed along diagonal to X and turn down the center line. Between X and G, halt and salute. Dismount, stand quietly for a moment. You may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head, run up the stirrups, and leave the arena leading the horse at its shoulder. Now, let's take another look at this ride. I won't call out the letters this time, but we'll talk about the horse, how the horse is moving, and what will affect the score. And then we will score it. So the first thing we see here is that this horse is quite relaxed. It's in a working walk some of the time, but it disengages from time to time. So what we see is an inconsistent working walk. Like right here, we see how the horse gets a little flat. The head kind of comes up, and you can almost see how the legs sort of spread apart, if you will, from the back to the front. A little bit of stumble there. Once again, that's caused from just not being quite balanced enough. So in order to score high, we would need a more consistent working walk out of the horse. In other words, a more consistent cadence, a more accentuation of the rhythm, so we can see the horse really stays over its top line. Now, however, there's a lot that's really good about this. We love the fact that the horse is really relaxed. It's very much paying attention to her. But the biggest thing that is destroying the score here is just how see the horse gets very flat there. Every time she gets on a straight line, the horse kind of flattens out. It doesn't completely hollow, but we see how we lose that engagement across the back, and that's what's going to affect the score a great deal. We can also just see developmentally that this horse has a lot of ways to go here, a long ways to go, to build that back to really get this consistent. We can see how behind the saddle there's a little bit of a dip in this horse's back, so we can see that this horse has got some developing to do, and I'm sure it will under Erin's care. So this is the best thing we've seen so far. It's coming out of that corner. We see a better stretch, a little more activity in the horse. We get a better swing over its back. We would like to have seen the stretch get deeper here. And we can see as she brings the horse back into its working walk, it gets a little inconsistent. Once again, there's a little bit of a trip there. So here in this leg yield, there's not quite enough stepping over. Beginning to get a little better here, but not really enough to score high. We'd like to see quite a bit more step through and keep the shoulder leading throughout. And once again, we get a good impression from this horse of being relaxed, listening to its riders, just not developed enough to really keep that consistent working the walk. To see a really good one, go back and watch some of Erin's previous ones. I think she got into the 76% on one horse that she did earlier. And you can really see what affected that score, how consistent the impulsion was. Remember that impulsion is the energy that you can control and direct. So when we see a horse that's going, it kind of engages and then it kind of flattens out, as you see kind of here, and kind of loses a little bit. So we're looking for that back to stay up and that a little more consistent. The horse should be lifting up through its back a little more in the walk in order to call it a really good working walk. But this is a good beginning. And a lot of the things that we strive for here, relaxation, the horse is very willing. So it tells me, the horse has not been abused in any way here about all this. It's quite happy in the work. And I know Erin has just begun working with this horse, so I think this horse has a lot of developing to do. Interestingly enough, it bends quite well, considering it doesn't counterflex or anything like that. Just, once again, the biggest problem here is just the inconsistency. And we can kind of see how with this horse, when you look at the horse and go by, you see how there's a bit of a dip behind the saddle there. The horse's flanks are a little bit extended, so it's not really lifting up through that back the way we'd like. Once again, better part here in the stretch, and once again, that's what we'd like to see, is when we get that stretch and really get that really going and swinging, that when we bring the horse up, we maintain that level of impulsion. And what we see here is that it kind of loses it here a little bit. She brings them back. But this came back a little better, but then we get a little resistance. The horse kind of just doesn't quite stay in the bridle though we would like it to. But this is certainly a very nice and beginnings here. I would always rather see a horse relax and a little less consistent than a horse that's being whipped up into a phony frame. Really nice on the center line. Pretty square halt there, but beautifully how it just stands quite quietly, listens to its rider. So I love a lot of what we saw here. It's a good foundation. It just needs a lot more expression in the gaits and consistency of the impulsion and the consistency of the top line position in order to score really high. But it was a very good first beginnings. Well done. Now we'll go through and score it. Straight and relaxed on the center line, 6. Losing impulsion and tripping, 4. Good turn onto the quarter line. Doesn't really step over enough in that leg yield, 4. Circle lacks impulsion, but good bend and relaxation, 5. Change of rein starts quite well, but doesn't quite stretch as deep as we'd like it to. It's a little better there. 5, but the gait improves. Pretty good on that development, just not quite enough impulsion in that, 4. Not enough stepping over in the leg yield, 3. Walk improves throughout circle, good bend and geography, 5. Working walk improved a little bit on that serpentine and really good geometry, 6. Could stretch a little deeper and show a little more swing. Kind of dies out about halfway there. 4, F to K, and then the working walk. Doesn't really develop the working walk the way we'd like to. Kind of resist there at the end of that. 3. Good turn on the quarter line, though loses some amount of rhythm. 5. A little unattentive, but a good halt. 6. Really nice relaxed horse, and good leaving the arena. We'll call that a 7. Very nice. Now let's look at our collective marks. Horse's correct level of physical development for the level entered. So we can see that the horse kept losing impulsion and losing the top line a little bit, kind of flattening and then re-engaging. So fairly consistent, rather fairly inconsistent. So 4 on that. Harmony between horse and rider was really very good. Now the score would go up on that had the horse stayed more consistently over its back. So some of that has to be taken into consideration, but really good harmony. There's no resistance anywhere in the test. So 6. Rider's correct level of development for this level, meaning is she fit enough to ride this? I would call that an 8. She's really quite fit. But I have to lower it just a little bit, just because we didn't see the horse stay over its back as much as we would like to. So we're going to call that a 7. Artistic impression. Always remember that the artistic impression is mostly affected by the rhythm of the gait. So when we see a horse like this that going quite well, but then it kind of flattens out, then it gets it back up again, flattens out. That's always going to be one of the biggest aspects in that artistic impression, because as we see the horse losing the impulsion, it takes our attention off of just watching the beauty of the movement. So we're going to call that a 4 for today, and of course that's a coefficient movement. Erin's score on this ride would have been a 44.09. Now we can see that the biggest thing that affected the score here was the consistency of the working walk. Had this horse been consistent in the working walk, this would have easily into the 70%, because it was very accurate, it was relaxed. All the things that we look for were here, except for the level of development of the walk itself. And so she's not far away. She gets this horse a little more consistent, and this horse would easily be scoring up into the 70% because everything else was really very good. But once again, without being consistently over the back, that's going to affect the score a great deal adversely. But great job on Erin for her first attempt with this horse on this ride. I want to remind everyone that we are still working on the World Dressage Federation, and we're just kind of waiting for more people to get far enough along that actually want to start doing some showing. So remember that I am now offering, anyone can send in one of these tests, and I will be happy to use it as one of our examples, and you'll get a little free lesson, if you will, in that we'll score it for you and talk about it just the way you see me doing on all these. So great work, Erin. We appreciate all the hard work you've put into this, and look forward to seeing more from you in the near future. Thanks a lot. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride.